Hello, and today I want to welcome you all to episode 4 of Rambling Reviews. Today I'm going to be talking about LA Woman by The Doors. Now this is a marvellous album by an absolutely fantastic band, one of my personal favourites. This is actually the last album that The Doors ever released, a 6th studio album, released not too long before the untimely death of Jim Morrison in 1971. Now this album is one of the definitive Doors albums. It mirrors in a lot of ways the first album, the self-titled album, just in terms of the substance, the essence of it. I'm not sure exactly how to put my finger on it, but it just mirrors it in so many ways, and it's for that reason one of the definitive two albums, the start and the finish of The Doors. In terms of style, it took a little bit of a turn because this album draws a lot from the blues. I mean, anyone who's listened to it doesn't need me to tell them that, but it's just, I mean, The Doors have never shied away from interpreting the blues. It's peppered all the way throughout the music. Morrison Hotel's like almost a blues album, but this is kind of focuses it a lot more. It's really rooted in the blues in a really awesome way, and for that reason, I feel this was an album that the Doors were always meant to make. I mean, they had such a love for the blues, particularly Jim Morrison. That's the music he always wanted to sing and always wanted to make, and that's why I'm just so glad that they made this album for their last album. It's just perfect. It's got such a raw sound to it, which again comes from, by this point in the career, Jim Morrison just did not want to be doing multiple recordings of tracks. He just wanted to kind of give that raw sound and return to the fun of it, the essence of it, and not the overproduction of music making. This had been one of the reasons that it had become so alienated with the music industry in the first place. But yeah. Let's get straight into the review. In this review, I'm actually going to be talking about all the songs individually, just kind of blasting through them, just because there's not many weak spots in this album, and I just kind of want to discuss all the songs a little bit, just for full context. So let's move on straight to it. So the first song, Changeling. Now this is an awesome song to start with. I mean, it's got such a groove to it, such a flow, and I love the way that the guitar and the piano play off of each other in such a playful way. I mean, by this point, the Doors were just such a tight band rhythmically, and they just knew how to play off each other's strengths so much, and this shows massively on this song. I also love the inflection in Jim Morrison's voice. I mean, once again, his voice is just the reason that he needs to be singing the blues. It's so raw, so aggressive, so abrasive, but just so perfect for the context of this kind of song. Also, really interestingly, the subtext of this song is perfect for starting off this album, because it's all about Jim Morrison's intention to leave behind the music industry, leave LA, and just really have a change of his lifestyle because it was not working for him. And he just wanted to leave it all behind and be a changeling. It's a really cool concept for the song, and for this album, it works so perfectly because this entire album is all about Jim Morrison just wanting to leave LA, leave everything behind. He knew before even making this album that he was leaving the band. The next song is Love Her Madly, and again this kind of mirrors that whole idea again. He loves the lifestyle madly, but he also all of the love that he had for it has just disappeared. It's become quite sour. The experience of living in LA, the experience of being a rock star, all of this had just become so sour to him. All the love he had for it had just disappeared by this point. In terms of the musicality of this song, the bass line is phenomenal. I've got to touch on that first. If you didn't know, Jerry Sheff was actually the bass player for this band, for this album, and that was the bass player for Elvis Presley. And he added so much to this album. It's honestly this song is one of the best examples of bass playing ever. It's just so cool. It's so focused, so driven. I could talk about this for the entire video, but I'm gonna have to move on. But it's really what gives it a lot of groove and a lot of movement, because this is one of them songs where you just want to, be wasted with a bottle of whiskey in your hands, just kind of like waving around, and it's just got that so much movement to it. Like, you just want to, when you listen to this song, it's just like you want to, I don't know, dance and just kind of move around and just flow with it. The next song is Down So Low. Now this has such a heavy bass line to it and just such a heavy kind of concept behind it. It feels like when you listen to this song, certainly in the intro bass line section, that you've got like a massive boulder on your back. And this kind of mirrors the lyrical content, because Jim Morrison in the song singing about feeling very trapped. about feeling that he's been, forced into this situation, or not forced, but he created a prison for himself. He references, the warden or whatever, in this song, and I feel like that's kind of representative of the music industry, of even just the fans, because at this point the fans demanded so much from him. They always wanted something from him, and no one would leave him be at this point. And this was what was destroying him, and this is what I remember Joe Rogan referenced this, saying that it's the G-forces of fame, and Jim Morrison was one of the early people who suffered from the G-forces of fame, alongside Janis Joplin. The next song we'll touch on is Cars Hiss By My Window. Now this comes perfectly in the album. It slows everything down a lot because it's quite an agitated start, quite fast paced, it's moving really quickly. But this song kind of slows it down a little bit. And another thing about this song that I love is you can just really tell that this is the music that Jim Morrison really wanted to make. I don't know where that comes from, but it just seems like he seems to take so much joy in this song. Even though the lyrical content is quite sad, it's quite depressing, you just can tell that this is his element. He's in his element making this kind of music. This was always the kind of songs that Jim Morrison was supposed to be putting out. And that's why I love this song so much. It just screams the blues in all the right ways, and it's just awesome. It's a fantastic song. The next song, it's not actually my favourite song by The Doors. It's L'America. Now, I don't dislike this song, but I've not got much love for it. And I'm not exactly sure why that is. I think it might have something to do with kind of the pacing, because the pacing on this song is quite choppy and changey, which for some people, they might love it. They might love that fact. It might be the guitar riff. I'm not a mad fan of the guitar riff on this song. Again, not a terrible song, but it's just not one of my favourites on the album. The next song is Hyacinth House. Now this song has such a melancholic feel to it. Just comes from kind of Jim Morrison's diction in this song, as well as kind of the tone of everything. It's a little bit more of a slower song, but it kind of tells the story of Jim Morrison singing about needing a brand new friend, someone that isn't demanding from him, someone who doesn't always need something from him. And I think this is a parallel that he's drawing between the music industry and his life. He created a life for himself where people were always needing something from him. People were always demanding something from him. If he didn't deliver, he wasn't holding up his side of the bargain. When he only got into making music, as anyone really does, got into making music for the love of it, for the fun, for the enjoyment, but he got caught in the trap. And again, this is just another song that adds to the narrative of this album, which is that it was all coming to an end one way or another. The next song is Crawling Kingsnake. This is actually a cover of an old Delta Blues classic. This song was originally attributed to John Lee Hooker, but as with a lot of these kind of songs from the 1920s era, it's really hard to put a finger on exactly who created the song. But the Doors have been performing this song since the early days. Since they started out, they'd always been covering it, so it feels perfect that this actually made it onto the album. This cover. It's so raw, it's such an aggressive kind of cover of it, and it's just fantastic, and I love that it's made it onto the album. The next song, which is the second to last song on the album, is Wasp, or it's Wasp, Texas Radio and the Big Beat, that's it. This is another awesome song, really blues, like a blues, just hard hitter. And it comes directly from Jim Morrison's poetry from, I think it's like the American Prayer era, I believe. And that just comes from, it's a spoken word kind of song, which really harkens back to songs like The End, where it's just kind of given that spoken word delivery, which Jim Morrison became really known for. And it's, for that reason, this song really mirrors the first album and the kind of essence that is The Doors. It's got a really awesome driving bass line, a general driving rhythm section, which makes this song so kind of beefy and so well driven. Don't mind me, I'm just getting a sore throat. The final song. Okay, so this is a song that's really hard to talk about. Riders on the Storm, and the reason it's really hard to talk about is because it's got, it's one of the most iconic songs ever. And for that reason, it carries such a weight to it. But I'm just going to try and, just get across my feelings about the song. First of all, it's just so cool. To me, this is one of the coolest songs ever. Just, I don't know what it is about it. When the thunder and the lightning kicks in at the start, I feel like you're just transported to a whole new world. And then you met with like this such a cool piano medley by Ray Manzia. And for anyone who doesn't know, Ray Manzia, who was a pianist organist, he actually was playing the bass line on his left hand on I think it's called a Korg key bass. So he's playing like the bass line there, and then with one hand he's doing all the solo stuff, which is mind blowing how he was able to achieve it. I mean, it just shows how much of a profound musician he was. But that's one of my personal highlights for this song. It's just the work that he achieves on the piano is phenomenal. Also, just like I say, the style of this song is just so cool. The song was kind of inspired. It was inspired by a few different things, but it was inspired by Billy Cook, who was a serial killer, hitchhiker serial killer, which is where the "There's a killer on the road" kind of lyric comes from. It's basically talking about this guy who was I think he killed like 6 people or something like that. He was a serial killer, and I don't know, it's kind of gives you that feeling that you can't put into words. This song, a lot of the context of this song, it's a lot of style and substance that is just, I don't know, grounded somewhere that I can't find the words for. So that's why it's just such a hard song to talk about. Other than that, that's going to be this review. I mean, like I say, kind of a dud on that on Riders on the Storm, but it's just because it's one of the songs that I just can't put my feelings about into words. So I'm not going to try to. That's going to be it for this review. I really enjoyed putting this one together, as I always do. I just love talking about the music that I'm talking about in these reviews. I'm sorry for this video being a day late. Not that anyone who's watching right now probably noticed. But I'm going to be back next week with a new album review. I'm not 100% what I'm going to be talking about next week. I've got a few ideas in mind, but I might leave it to be a bit of a surprise. I'm going to have a new tangential track review out this Wednesday. And that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege. I'll see you Wednesday or next week. Take care.